public relations. She's a public relations practitioner, and then we expect that she comes along with that experience. And then she says she's also passionate about youth advocacy and inclusion in development-driven interventions. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a brief about our panelists. We hope that we have a good deliberation with them. Yes. So, if you could allow me to take a seat. Yes, the two gentlemen and the two ladies, you're most welcome to this panel. Our objective of this panel is to see that we build on shared and informed understanding of the climate crisis, the anger situation in the region, and then following your experiences as youth leaders and the expert in the room. I mean, in the panel, Mr. Olem, Mr. Lowell, we also expect to see that you come along with your experience in the field of civil society organizations to this panel. So the presentation was made by Mr. Solomon on on the Karamoja Development Plan, and it seems quite to be, having a bigger picture. And then what does it mean? So in the presentation, it was highlighting that they would like to move Karamoja from merely an agricultural community to a commercial, productive, and resilient economy in quite a number of pillars. I saw something to do with peace, security, industrialization, governance is also in there. Then there is economic infrastructure, tourism, and then anything in the Karamoja culture. So you're looking at all those key areas. So we want to understand from you, do you think this is possible, or do you think there are certain bottlenecks that we think we may not be in position to achieve this from just being a mere paper document into the community impact? So this is a general question to all of us. If we could try to look into this, do we think this is possible to move Karamoja from just being a pastoralist livelihood, pastoralist community into a highly productive community? Yes. So as we wait for the mic to set, Karamoja is well known.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to start from what the previous speakers had already mentioned. Already the previous speaker mentioned that on climate monitoring alone, 36 weather stations were established in the region, and about a quarter are not working. That is the very first part that we need to handle. The second part of it is we also need to understand the status of Karamoja in terms of the youth composition. About 65% of the population of Karamoja is composed of people below 25 years. That is the part that we need to focus. Then the third part that we also want us to look at is in terms of the structure of operationalization of the program that we're talking about. The structure, especially the rural structure. If you look at the population of Karamoja, about 78% of them live in rural areas. If anything is to be achieved, then we need to use those facts to really achieve results. I just want to give Moroto as an example. The youth grant alone in Moroto in the financial year 2026-2027, they received about 1.8 million transitional grant and about 637,000 conditional grants. What can that money do? What can 2.6 million do? In a population of 31,826 youth, what can that money do? I think that's the point we need to start if we can really achieve something. So the point is, what do we have that can enable us achieve? I think that's the biggest point that we need to achieve, that we need to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel, for those insights. From our other member panelists, is there anything that we feel we could speak to see that this Karamoja development plan for the next 10 years is put into practice and not just in paper? Do we think it is possible to transition this region from merely subsistence to commercial?
Thank you so much, Samuel. Ideally, a lot of things that are always put in paper can, when you put it to a vision, it is something that can be achieved, because you cannot draft something and say it will not be achieved. But I think the bigger picture should go on which strategies can we employ so hard to make sure that whatever is written in a paper is translated to the downer community impact, such that we see at the end of the projected time, we have what we intend to achieve. But I still appeal to community leaders, to national leaders, that let's look so much into getting tangible strategies. Oftentimes we have talked about climate change in Karamoja, but we have not really dug deep into something that we say, let's put this and we stop the issues or we mitigate. We have seen several options when we have issues like this. We are running to all government, let them present us with relief or development partners. What do you have for us? But more often, we have seen very many countries put in irrigation schemes. That is something we need as Karamoja, not just a food. The 20 kilograms of portion that government is giving, ideally we appreciate, but how long? What is the sustainability? We need to practice or we need to front something that is sustainable, that we see that it can move from generations to generations. So if we're thinking on many ways, let's look at the long-term impacts, not just something that we are going to mitigate in 5 months. Then after the 5 months, we still say, oh, rain has come. Let's now see what the Karamojongs are going to pick up from there. But we need something that will move beyond that. We were talking about the Kobebe Dam. From the time it was established, nothing like desilting happened. The dam, if you go and see, last year around November, we had gone there for a dialogue, but you could see even the water that the animals are consuming is ideally it has a lot, the water had turned to something green, and you could see, if we are going to have this as a sustainable measure, how shall we maintain it in the long run? Thank you.
So before we go to the rest of the panelists, I would like to go back to Daniel. Mr. Solomon spoke about the $84 million. Isn't it huge money? It's huge funding if it is to reach here in Karamoja. So we would like to understand. So when we have to look at the young people, of course, they are 80%. When you look at the Karamoja population, it's 80% of them are people below the age of 30. And when we are to look at these people, in most cases, they are not involved in the planning, implementation, and probably even just monitoring. So from your expert experience and so on, do you think there is a practical way we can have young people to be introduced in the planning of a funding of that volume, if it is really true that it's possible to have such funding here in Karamoja?
Yeah, thank you so much. If you look at the total budget of KRDP, the 28 commitments that have been mentioned in the KRDP, majority of it is not focusing on the youth, yet we are the population. I think that's the starting point of looking at the KRDP. Then second of it is, I think there's been unbalanced discussion about focusing Karamoja and where Karamoja is supposed to go. Moroto is called Marble City. Marble City. What is marble about Moroto, for example? We are talking about the factories coming in Moroto, but is it matching to the level of skills that the youth are going for or the youth are studying so that they can tap the opportunities that are existing? Already, there is about 50 billion earmarked by the government of Uganda to develop the tourism sector in Karamoja. But how much are we investing the local communities, the young people, to prepare for these opportunities? That is the niche that we need to really discuss. Then the other bit of it is many of the young people are struggling with a lot of things that really need to be tackled. We all know 5 of every 10 Karamojongs you meet, young girls, marry before the age of 18 years. 4 out of 10 are always trafficked every day. But what are we doing about it? We are talking about the future. Where is the future? You're leaving the future to go. We are talking about education. How many institutions in the region, for example, are training skills that enable young people to tap industrial opportunities? Karamojongs fear death, which is painful, like someone falling on top of a building. That's why many of them I had ran away from the factory. So where is our investment in terms of the skills that are matching the opportunities in the region? We are talking about gold mining. We are talking about a lot of opportunities that are coming now with the development in Karamoja. But where are the skills matching? And how much are we investing? And I just mentioned about the budget of about 2.6 million per quarter for the youth department in the district. What can 75 per capita cost do, even though you are the best DCPO in the region? What can you do with that money? I think that's the biggest focus. And this has really put the youth into a misguided process. Many of the youth are becoming now content creators. Yes, for money, but what's the future of content creation? Content creation and mining, content creation and the opportunities that are in the region. Where are we? Where are we positioned as the youth? And just to ask, what is the vision of the youth agenda? For example, maybe for Karamoja, I don't want to talk about for Uganda. What is the vision? We are misguided as the youth that education is the key. But let's use the practical skills. How is our education guided to the direction that we can tap so that the benefits are really enhanced? Thank you.
Thank you Dale, so much for those insights. The good thing we have our representatives from the district local governments and they are listening to some of these key discussions. I would like to find out from you, probably in form of a question, do you think there is a particular question to do with how do we adjust our skilling hubs to see that they are able to design a learning program or curriculum that aligns with the industrial establishment that is currently in the region? Because if you are to look at Karamoja, so as we speak now, we have Jobao here with a production capacity up to 6,000 tons of clinker per day. Then we have Tororo at 5,000 tons per day. So this is 11,000 tons of production in just one day. So just imagine we have such industries, and we still complain with the issues of unemployment among young people. Is there any particular kind of request that you could place, or some sort of a thought that we could request the institutions, providers of skilling and so on, to see that they are just learning to fit into the current needs in the market?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the aspect of the skilling hub is really a very good initiative, and I really thank the government of Uganda for bringing such opportunities to the region. Because truly talking, I think statistics clear about 87% of the youth are in the informal sector in the region, which means that the percentage of the people, the youth who are in employment, are less than 15%. So again, the skilling hub is one opportunity that the region have. And equally, with the level of diversity of the needs in the region, the skilling hub, yes, has the courses that are relevant to the region, but we would like to see the skilling hub moving at the speed of how development is moving in the region. There's a new airport being opened in Kidepo. How are the skilling hubs responding to that? We have Yobai Cement here. We have Toro Cement opening soon. How are we matching with the level of development in the region? Tourism sector is now leading with Kidepo, Piano Pegam Reserve, and also Matiniko Bokora Corridor. I think the skilling hub could be diversified to tap some of those opportunities. Then the second thing that I would also like to really see that is, I think our communities are really struggling with making sure that some of the skills that are learned from the skilling hubs are really put into the real market and also the real benefit to the real community. Many of the courses like tailoring, shoemaking, yes, they are very necessary. But what is the level of scale of the need of that skill to the bigger part of the community? If you look at, for example, a skill like shoemaking, tailoring, and maybe welding and joinery, some of it needs umeme. But what's the level of distribution of umeme in our region? The statistics indicate only 2.2% of the people in the Karamoja are connected to the grid. So if I learn, for example, electrical works, maybe from the skilling hub, why do I earn at the end of the day? How do the community benefit? That is the point that we need to really focus on. We need to match the skills with the development of the region. The youth agenda needs to be clear. The 65% of the population that we are talking about in Karamoja needs to have a very clear agenda. Actually, the KRDP should have been a youth agenda. It should have been a youth agenda, not an agenda of the whole of Karamoja without any clear direction. That is the position that I'm looking at. Then the second bit that I'm also looking at, and that is, we're talking about climate change. We're talking about land. But land in Karamoja is openly auctioned. Who auctions this? How many youth participate in that auctioning? 100,000 acres, for example, under Toro Cement. How many youth signed to have that? But we're the ones who are going to face the consequences. We're the ones going to face the consequences. What's the level of participation of youth in auctioning of resources that matter to the future. What are those special, what are those considerations that were put in place to make sure that youth involvement in whatever happens that have a longer term effect on the region is considered? Then the last thing that I wanted to mention on that is in terms of the level of human capital investment. We very well know that the aspect of child marriage is very high in the region, 5 out of 10. Child trafficking, 4 out of 10. These are facts, but how much have we done? For example, not just as a region, but as a strategic body, for example, as KRDP, or as maybe chairpersons of the region, or as maybe development arm of the region, to really make sure that there is a very deliberate effort to make sure some of these vices that affect the future generation end. I think that's the biggest focus, so that the future that we call the securing the future is really secured. Karamoja is not securing itself because of that. So these facts that we are struggling with need to really be put into very clear rest and very clear strategic. And the KRDP is the biggest opportunity that probably could really help us tap into this. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Daniel, thank you so much for those insights. Also bringing the statistics of child marriage in the region, child trafficking, those are some of the statistics probably are not common to everybody to have a look at. So before we proceed to other panelists here, I would like to ask the audience if there is any question that you would like to ask. It would be interesting to hear if there is one or two. Yes, so remember we are reflecting onto the presentation of the Karamoja Development Plan 2025-2035. So perhaps we could be asking ourselves, what will Karamoja be in the next 10 years? Something of the kind.
Thank you, Daniel, and the panelists. Mine is not ideally a question, but to back up Daniel and Nakumol's presentation. From the presentation of the OPM expert, it comes to my mind that the programming is not developed from the grassroots. It's a decision or it's an idea developed from the office and expected to be implemented on the ground or adopted by the people on the ground. Look at the YLP. Let me talk about the youth fund, for example. This is a design from someone thinking about you, your future, and expects you to have an abrupt change in the next maybe few months. You're expected to go to a secure future. For example, the YLP program is designed not fit for the Karachuna. This is a program designed to fit the urban youth. So how are we taking care of the young guys down there in the grazing areas? For example, the Karachuna's grazing animals. Do they know about the YLP? Surely they don't know. And also the process to get these funds, it's not very easy. It's complicated because the tools are designed to fit for us who have gone to school. So if the young guys have not gone to school, they cannot access this grant. What are we going forward for? Can we develop a robust program that can help people at the grassroots? This through the bottom to top design of a program whereby ideas are originating from those who did this kind of change. Because if you are to change the people, then the change must come among themselves, not from somebody coming from the top expecting a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pius, for that. I am please. My apologies that I'm only taking one question. We still have a lot to do this side. Yes, Pius has already given a picture of how government programs sometimes happen. That it is some sort of bottom, bottom approach. Somebody designs YLP, expecting that it will shift people from their current state to probably the desired future. And in most cases, it doesn't happen that way. First of all, when you look at PDM, 1 million per beneficiary, is this a realistic figure? We had a youth dialogue last year during the cultural event in Nakapiripiri. So some youth were advocating for increase of that money from just 1 million to about 3 million. Maybe perhaps we should ask ourselves another question that could be relevant to this. I would like to go to one of our panelists, that is Prosi. Prosi, if you could give us some sort of insights. Do you think adopting entrepreneurship in Karamoja may be helpful for young people, given that there are opportunities, for example, the 84 million under the Karamoja development plan that Mr. Solomon spoke about? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Um, I think looking at the current partnerships in development, that is the way to go. Earlier on, initially, Karamoja is a region where we did not embrace in the early years entrepreneurship, the business ideas, and it is something that has transitioned. And even when we are talking about skilling, still our communities, the mindset is still set up in the back. Like if I go and learn tailoring, then it's not a white collar job. It's not something maybe that cannot benefit me. Like there is that mindset in to our people that whatever is at the skills level is not something that is beneficial to the greater community. But it's something we say that if we then transition to agribusiness, what do we have? What do we intend to do? What do you think our people need to do? I want to tap on something like the land access in Karamoja. Land access is something that is hard for the youth, even at family level, even at community level. It is hard for a young person like me, and even it is worse with the girl child. At home, they say you're going to marry and you will get land from maybe from your in-laws, or your husband will have land and it will be given to you. But we see that if we are to transition to subsistence, to farming that is translated to agribusiness, where are the youth going to get these lands from? A lot of lands here are communally owned, but which lands even investors or the people outside Karamoja have access to land even more than us, the Karamoja bonds. More often of the time, you move around here, you can move in Moroto here and you see land and they say, oh, this land has been marked by so and so. It is a land that belongs to this company. But as the youth, in next 10 years, we may not even have land to settle in, the young generation. How are our leaders protecting land for for the youth or even for the community people? Because if we are to go to agribusiness, we need land. We look at things like we were talking about skilling of the youth. Then we merge into the startup capital. Yesterday, when we had the youth parliament, we had many of our youth advocating to development partners. If we can have initiatives or interventions that translate to giving youth startup capital, to see that they can go out there and establish businesses. But while Daniel was presenting, we are talking about this industrialization happening in the region. I want to give an example. Early back in the years when I was still at university, I happened to work with Total as an intern. And we were having discussions and dialogues in Bunyoro region about the eco projects. When we went there to all the community dialogue, we had youth fronted by their leaders, the local government leaders, the political wing, telling them that where do you want us to put these people? We had the fastest they task Total and the rest of the partners was, we want to see your corporate social responsibility. What are your CSR plans and strategies for us? What is there? That is where we want to start from before we hold any discussion. It's something I've been dreaming of asking myself. Our leaders, did you had plans with these investors? Asking them what do they have for our communities, because we move around there and they say Tororo Cement has put a school, a nursery school. In Bunyoro, the partners of the ECOP had an entire bursary scheme from grassroots, from nursery up to university for the community. Why is it that when it comes to Karamoja, the situation changes? We are given a small thing. These are multi-billion companies. Why? Right now we are struggling in the anger situation, but we don't have them at the limelight. We don't have them coming to our communities to support. But still, this is to our leaders. Why are you leaving our communities? we trust, we entrusted you to advocate for us. But when we hear even rumors, we were in for an engagement in Kosroy, and the community said, we hear that our politicians have shares in these industries. That is why they cannot talk for us. So imagine the picture your own people have for you. So it is something we still advocate to our leaders. Let's streamline. If investments are coming to the region, the community should be the first sensitive issue. What do they have for our people? Um, when we go to still on the startup the startup capital kits for our youth, we still appeal that to our youth. This is to the youth because development partners, local government or national government can do something. But how are you going to handle this? More often, we have seen, much as it's not in a large scale, development partners have invested millions of money to see that the youth get these skills, but also translate them back to impact. But we have seen our youth abandon them in most often. We always move in communities to see how the progress, but we tend to find out that most times they abandon, they leave the skills and they just die with them like that. So it's also an appeal to the youth leaders here that when you go back to our communities, let's embrace, let's give people information. You can start from something small and it can grow bigger tomorrow. Let's avoid the issue of I want um profits or I want huge amounts of money within one day. PDM can give you 1 million today, but tomorrow, how are you going to multiply that? That should be also the question back to you, because if we commit ourselves to move from what we are right now to agribusiness, we need to have the skills of being patient, but also growing up these things to see that we benefit from them. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
so thank you so much, Prosi, for those insights. Our invited guests, the audience at the back, as you've heard, it is possible to, support young people with the required capital to start up their business enterprises, other than just partner projects that have been implemented in the region for the last 30 plus years. So I would like to go to our panel member, that is Mr. Ayen. Mr. Ayen, you are a youth leader, yes. So we would like to know if you very much remember, Mr. Solomon talked about a certain amount of money that probably is within one of the required money that can probably implement the Karamoja development plan for the next 10 years. So I would like to find out, we are aware that there have been government programs being implemented by OPM, by also other government agencies up to district level. So how prepared are our youth structures, right from the community you go to, that's of course from the village, sub-county, up to district level, to see that the implementation of some of these projects do not just end up in paper, but we are able to track the implementation of this funding until the last coin. So how prepared our structures as a youth leader?
Thank you very much, Samuel. The um, National Youth Council Act provides for leadership structures, establishment of leadership structures across the 5 tiers, from the village to the sub-county to the national level. In each of those hierarchies, there are 9 positions headed at every hierarchy by the chairperson. What are the responsibilities of these youth leaders at each of those hierarchies? They are supposed to mobilize the young people for any government program that is available. You've seen the participation of young people in mobilization for PDM, for YLP, and the skilling hub. I'm sure you know that for young people to be chosen to come to these skilling hubs, there is participation of one of the youth representative, could be a chairperson or a councillor or any chosen member of the youth council. So members of these youth structures help to mobilize the youth to inform them about the available government programs, the available opportunities, and give them information. The structures also help to advocate. You know, most of these government programs are filled with lots of corruption and a lot of bureaucracy. So these young leaders shine light on some of those programs so that we know the wrongs and the goods that are happening in the implementation of government programs. But most importantly, they inform the young people, they give them knowledge so that some of these things are tracked to the completion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayen. I think the reason behind that is that most of our visits to the district local governments, then you find that we have structures, yes, in existence, but then access to those structures is quite difficult for young people. Yeah. So the criteria for a young person to qualify, for example, to become a member of the district disaster management committee is quite complex. You should perhaps have been the head of a department in one of the top, sectors in the district, which is why it's sometimes difficult for young people to find access to such decision-making spaces. Yeah, so let's go to our sister here, that's Mrs. Linda. So I would like to borrow my discussion with our senior elder, senior cow from Amuna district. He was telling me that there are three different categories of youth. There are youth who have never gone to school, and they are the ones who are adding livestock. So they are the ones who are always moving with the livestock during times of scarcity of grass and pasture, or when the rain season resumes and then now livestock returns back to the villages. So that's one of the vulnerable categories of young people. Then the second category of people we talked about is young people who have gone to school but dropped out of school, did not complete. So they are the ones who are roaming in the streets and then causing chaos here and there. Then also he talked of the third group of young people. So those ones who have gone to school, but then they are finished, they have their papers with them, qualifications with them, but then they don't fit into the job market. Then they are unemployed. They are the ones that constitute about quite about 70% of the unemployed youth here in our society. So we would like to find out from our sister Adinda here. Do you really think our district structures have been in position to integrate, especially the so-called the uneducated, not uneducated, but those who have never gone to school into the development agenda, especially to see that we transition them from being cattle raiders into agents of development, something of the kind.
Thank you so much. I think to a lower extent, the youth, especially those ones who have dropped out of school, and the Karachunas, those are the main kind of people, especially in Karamoja as a sub-region, that are being affected. Just like we have the National Development Plan for Karamoja as a region, like Mr. Solomon told us, it has the Regional Development Plan. However, in this regional development plan, we do have 6 pillars, and these 6 pillars are supposed to say sustain us for the next 10 years. So the question that we should ask ourselves as young people is that in these 6 pillars, is the climate information and risk information at the forefront? Because at the end of the day, even if we are talking about, let's say, for example, climate change, governance, things to do with the youth, the climate action, the climate information should be at the forefront of everything. And then when we see in challenges, when we see at the district local government or the district committee, we have you find where we are having issues to do with implementation. The implementation is that the architecture of the way the structure where money comes from the central government. By the time it brings it to the local government, you find that the local government is given the burden to deliver without proper power or funds being given. They are just supposed to be given time to deliver, which does not make sense. You find that in this regional development plan 4, you find that the central government is having like 55%, and then the local government is having like 4%. And then we see the private sector is having like 24%. And then when we see, okay, these guys are supposed to, that the district planning committee is supposed to implement these activities in all the regions of Karamoja. That is where they don't have contact of these 3 streams of income to be distributed in the entire region. And then also the other thing is, even when these funds are being given, the disbursement is the problem. You find that where civil society organizations, you find like Restless Development, Accord, is making sure, is always asking for accountability in the government. So that's you give us accountability and say the money was used for this such and such, or the money was being used for this. But then you find that no one even knows how the money is being used to the district level. I think that is one of the greatest challenges. Then also, much as we have the presidential skilling hubs, we have a Myoga, we have the YLP, you find that these programs, particularly, it does not focus on the Karachunas. It focuses on the urban youth. Then, when it focuses on the urban youth, you find that the main people who are supposed to benefit from these programs are moving out. They are going into the raids. and they're the ones traveling to Kampala. I think the Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development last week talked about how Karamoja children are the largest amount of street children in Kampala. But then when you look at the main problem that is facing Karamoja, you'll find it's the food security crisis. I think that is the first aspect that should be resolved in Karamoja before we start thinking about the mineral developments that we have. Because there is no way, as me as a young person who is very hungry, I will start thinking of how we have marble, of how we have gold. I'll always first think about food first. So as a young person, even the presidential skilling hubs, you can train as 1,000 people. But at the end of the day, people will think about what they want to eat. And we shall still go back to ground zero in that people who have attended the presidential skilling hub are going back to raiding because they need to eat. And also, the most important part is that we are having a crisis to deal with education. Much as Karamoja as a region, we are the lowest illiterate rates in the region. You find that we are having issues where the government promises to say, okay, Karamoja, we are going to give sub counties and parishes, we are going to establish, let's say, secondary schools or primary schools in the region. But then the primary schools that in the region are not coded. And the importance of coding is that the government should provide funding, for example, building to bring food in the region, building school blocks. So without funding, you find like someone is moving from one long distance, from one sub county, for example, someone is moving from Opopongo all the way to Nyakwai looking for education. That results most of the youth to drop out of school and maybe start joining things to do with mining. Then they go into raids and then maybe look for other livelihood in cities like Kampala and Mbale.
Thank you very much. As our brother Mr. Solomon was telling us that climate change is increasingly becoming unavoidable. So, if I may ask to us, of course, we are coming towards the end of our discussion. If I may ask ourselves that are there things that we feel we should, you know, already ask, such that by the time we come here next year, probably we could remind our duty bearers if those things were put into practice or put in place. Because I'm sure that our organizers might again call for this kind of event in the next year, something like the kind. So, do we have any commitments that we think we need to, discuss and share with our duty bearers
Yes.
for action? Yes, please, let's speak into that.
I think just like the way we are having conversations here, this is our first summit. This should not be a conversation that we are just having here. We, as leaders of the community, we should try as much as possible. We, as young people, even our technical officers, even our leaders, the LC5s and the COWs and the RDCs, how do we find a way to implement that what we are learning here, we are taking it back to the community, to our grassroots level, to the village level, to the parish level. And I believe as young people, these are the kind of conversations that we should be having. In order to create change in a certain community, we start by having conversations. The conversations should not only end here, we should be having these conversations in the Abutia groups. We should be having it in the Marwa groups. And also as young people, for most of us who have gone to school, I think it's our social responsibility to make sure that we try as much as possible when there are opportunities, for example, opportunities for growth, we should try as much as possible to let our other people, let's say the Karachunas, we are having peer-to-peer kind of information to tell them, okay, there are certain things that you're doing, much as you're looking for a livelihood out of it, it is going to cost you at the end of the day. It's all about mentorship towards each other in order to create change in the community. But I think overall, the best thing that we can do is by starting having this conversation. And I also want to thank our development partners, Restless Development and other consortiums that have decided to bring all the young people together in the entire region by creating the Karamoja Youth Parliament. I think this is a deliberate and a continuous platform that is being given us to young people so that we can try as much as possible to talk about the issues that are affecting us as young people in the region, because it is our responsibility for us to create change and also to write our narratives, not instead of bringing other people from other regions to create stories for us to change us. It's change always starts with us. Thank you.
If I could go straight to our expert person in the panel, that is Luwalem. So, Mr. Angelo, our chairman, had talked about the job situation here. We have industry setting up, we have partners in the area, then there are these opportunities. So he talked about if it is possible to establish a certain percentage of young people getting absorbed into these job opportunities. So what kind of issue is this that you are asking our duty bearers to put into consideration as a commitment as we leave this place today?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we just need to use the statistical evidence to advocate. If 65% of the population of Karamoja is the youth, then we need to utilize that to advocate from, for example, the institutions, both business institutions and also other institutions of government, to ensure that at least 6 out of 10 of the youth are involved in at least a number of maybe committees, a number of committee structures, including up to employment level. I think already with the opportunities of the private sector in a region like Yobai Cement, Sunbelt, Toro Cement, already at least 6 out of 10 at least can be the youth. I don't want to say it should be Karmojongs, but should be the youth. At least that could be a good start. Then second of it is, we already know that there is hunger in Karamoja. And the only solution to hunger is food. Actually, this is an emergency state, especially for the young people. We have seen so many people go to mining. Just a week ago, there was a news, 2 children were buried in the mines. By this time, if I was the RDC of Moroto, I would say from today, all schools should be free for children and food has to be provided, at least for the whole of Karamoja, so that maybe if there are any budgets that are anywhere, they could prioritize first giving food to the schools so that children are safe. Let food be in the schools. So that as we continue advocating, meetings with the PS, meeting with the office of the Prime Minister, the children should be in school. I think for me, this is the most immediate we need to do so that the issues of employment gradually can grow and support the future generation. Thank you.
Yes, because of time, I would like to declare our panel discussion ended here. So thank you very much. A round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you very much, panelists and moderator. We'll do comments after our lunch. We are out of time. So meanwhile, we have coupons, and there are 2 types. There's a sealed coupon and a non-sealed coupon. Those with sealed coupons will go and have their lunch this side. And then the other ones that are not sealed will have their lunch where there was breakfast served in the morning here. Thank you very much. Bon appetit. We have only 1 hour and shall be here at exactly 3. So that to go for breakout sessions in the afternoon. Thank you. Someone to bless the meal. Today again, I struggle to get someone to pray.
Sino la
Thank you.
kigana nati, pasigo chapam, fikiva kukumba, paka from transamati.
Hey DJ, we are praying.
Baby make a give soli, ka even mix some, Taliana walk pow, ewe de miteri, any tete, sleeping and da, 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 sleeping and da, 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 da. Sino la kigana nati, pasigo chapam, kiva kukumba, waka from transamati, till I like big fish, kabugo kumba. Baby make a give you solid, ka even mix some, Taliana walk pow, ewe de miteri, mitete, sleeping and da, 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 sleeping and da, 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 sleeping and da, 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 sleeping and da. Setting infinity, She said, make her put it in. I put it in. She said, infinity. Oh,
Those without coupons, please find a gentleman called Napokoli and ask for a coupon.
I take Kalawuska. Cover me like babushka. Would you like to get my kiwa? And your body you different animal. Sangalo me like a JJ. Make I treat man like I'm some money. What you do with the banana? Go determine if you go get us for banana. Very much show yourself. Do what you do. Use Kayamata, you feel use Juju. They don't play me your tape for artillery. You dey use collect boy salary. Make I put firewood for the fire.